One heated argument at the bookstore, the black woman the billionaire never believed he'd find. She called my book choice garbage. Just like that. No introduction, no small talk. Just walked up to a complete stranger in her bookstore and told me I had terrible taste. I should have been offended. Instead, I asked her out. Best decision I ever made. Close your eyes for just a moment. Think about the last time a story made you feel something real. Made your heart race. Made tears fall without permission. Made you remember why being human is so beautifully complicated. That's what we do here at CJ Stories. Whether you're returning or just discovering us, welcome home. This is your safe space for tears, laughter, hope, and everything in between. Today's story will take you somewhere unexpected. It'll make you think. It'll make you feel. And I promise you, you won't see the ending coming. But here's the thing, the magic only works if you stay till the very end. No skipping. No rushing. Just you, me, and a story that might just change how you see the world. If it moves you, let me know you're here, subscribe, like, and share this with someone whose heart needs touching today. Ready? Let's step into today's story. The argument started over a book about economic theory, which should have been Jimmy Lupton's first warning that this woman was different. It was mid-June 2024, a Saturday afternoon in Seattle's Capitol Hill neighborhood, and Jimmy had ducked into the independent bookstore to escape a conference call that had run 20 minutes over schedule. At 37, he'd learned that sometimes the best business decision was knowing when to step away from a conversation that was going nowhere productive. The bookstore was called Smith & Stories, a narrow space wedged between a coffee roaster and a vintage clothing shop. Hardwood floors, exposed brick walls, and the smell of paper and coffee. He'd walked past it 100 times but never gone inside. His assistant ordered his books online and had them delivered to his office downtown. He was scanning the business section, looking for nothing in particular, when he heard her voice. That one's garbage. Jimmy turned. The woman stood about 4 feet away, arms crossed, looking at the book he'd just picked up. She was beautiful in a way that made him forget what he'd been thinking about. Dark brown skin, natural hair pulled back in a low bun, glasses perched on her nose. She wore a simple green dress and white sneakers, and she was looking at him like he'd just made a critical error in judgment. "Excuse me?" "The book." She nodded toward it. "Pure garbage." Repackaged trickle-down economics wrapped in tech bro language. He glanced at the cover. "I was just browsing." "Good. Keep browsing past that one." She moved closer, ran her finger along the shelf, and pulled out a different book. "This one actually has something useful to say." Jimmy took it, more amused than offended. "You work here?" "I own here." She extended her hand. "Carolyn Smith." "Jimmy Lupton." Her handshake was firm, confident. "I know who you are." She said it matter-of-factly, without the usual deference he got when people recognized him. "You're the guy who sold that data analytics platform for $800 million 3 years ago." "Guilty. So you don't need my recommendation. You can buy every book in this store if you want. But you gave it anyway." Professional hazard. "I can't watch someone pick up a bad book without saying something." She adjusted her glasses. "It's like watching someone order a well-done steak. Technically allowed, but morally I have to intervene." He smiled. "Strong stance on literature." "It's a bookstore. If I don't have strong stances on literature, what's the point?" Jimmy looked at the book she'd handed him, then back at her. "What if I told you I agree with the first book's premise? Then I'd say you're either messing with me or you need to read more widely. Maybe both." "Great. I love a challenge." She leaned against the bookshelf. "Make your case." And just like that, they were debating. Not arguing, exactly. Something more energizing than that. She disagreed with him on virtually every point, but she listened, actually listened, before dismantling his arguments with precision and unexpected humor. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. "You're oversimplifying." Carolyn pulled another book from the shelf. "Innovation doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens because of infrastructure, education, social systems. The whole rising tide thing only works if everyone has a boat." "I'm not saying systems don't matter. I'm saying individual initiative is the engine. Individual initiative backed by capital, connections, and usually a safety net." She handed him the book. Chapter 6. "There's a whole section on this. Are you always this stubborn? Are you always this wrong?" Jimmy laughed. He couldn't help it. "I have an MBA from Stanford. I have a degree in economics from Howard and 4 years of real-world experience running a business on Capitol Hill. Want to compare notes?" "Actually, yes." She blinked. "What? Have coffee with me. We can continue this." He gestured around the store. "Unless you have customers to attend to." Carolyn glanced toward the front. The store was empty except for one college-aged kid reading in the corner. It's not exactly rush hour. So that's a yes? That's a maybe, I'll consider it. When will you know? When you buy the book I recommended instead of the garbage you picked up first. Jimmy looked at the book in his hand, then at her. She was trying not to smile. He could see it in the way her mouth curved slightly at the corner. Deal. He headed toward the register at the front of the store. She followed, moving behind the counter with easy familiarity. You know you don't have to actually buy it. I was half joking. Only half? Okay, 75% joking. I want to read it anyway. See if you're right. I am right. She rang up the purchase. $22.50. He handed her his card, watching as she processed the payment. Her movements were efficient, practiced. The register was old, the kind with actual buttons instead of a touch screen. How long have you owned this place? He asked. 4 years. Opened in 2020, which in hindsight was interesting timing. That must have been difficult. It was. She handed him the receipt. But we made it through. We? Me and the books. She smiled. They're terrible conversationalists but excellent company. The college kid in the corner stood up, putting his book back on the shelf before heading out. The door chimed as he left. See? Carolyn said. Browsers. It's mostly browsers on Saturday afternoons. Is that sustainable? Wow, we just met and you're already asking about my business model? Sorry. Occupational hazard. It's fine. She leaned against the counter. And to answer your question, it's sustainable enough. Barely. But that's retail. Jimmy noticed the way she said it. Casual, but with an undercurrent of something else. Stress, maybe. Or worry. The coffee offer stands, he said. Carolyn studied him for a moment. Why? Why what? Why do you want to have coffee with me? You're a billionaire tech guy. I'm a small business owner who just told you your opinions were wrong. Maybe that's exactly why. That's not an answer. Okay. He set the book down on the counter. Because in the last 25 minutes, you're the first person I've talked to all week who didn't agree with everything I said. It's refreshing. Refreshing. She repeated the word like she was testing it. And because I haven't had a conversation this interesting in months. Now you're just flattering me. Is it working? She laughed. Actually laughed, her whole face transforming with it. Maybe a little. So is that a yes? It's a maybe leaning toward yes. She glanced at the clock on the wall. I can't leave right now. I'm here until 6. What about after? After I have to do inventory, check next week's orders, and figure out why my website keeps crashing. What if I helped with the website? Carolyn raised an eyebrow. You're offering to fix my website in exchange for coffee? I'm offering to fix your website because it'll take me 10 minutes and then you'll have time for coffee. That's presumptuous. Is it wrong? She considered this. No, actually. The website thing has been driving me crazy for 2 weeks. Show me. Carolyn hesitated, then gestured for him to come around the counter. He followed her to a small desk tucked in the back corner. An ancient desktop computer sat surrounded by stacks of invoices, publisher catalogs, and sticky notes covered in cramped handwriting. It's probably something simple, she said, waking up the computer. But I don't have time to figure it out, and I can't afford to hire someone right now. Jimmy pulled up a folding chair and sat down. She stood beside him, close enough that he could smell her perfume. Something light and clean, like citrus. The website loaded. Or tried to. The homepage kept redirecting to an error page. See? Carolyn pointed at the screen. Every time. When did this start? About 2 weeks ago. Right after I updated some product descriptions. Jimmy navigated to the back end. You're on WordPress? Yeah. My friend set it up for me when I first opened. He clicked through the settings, checking plugins and configurations. She was right. It was something simple. A plugin conflict causing the redirect loop. Found it. He disabled the conflicting plugin. Try it now. Carolyn leaned over his shoulder, her hand resting on the desk beside the mouse. The website loaded perfectly. Oh my God. She straightened up. That's it? That's all it was? Sometimes the simple problems are the hardest to see when you're too close to them. I could kiss you right now. The words hung in the air for a second before she seemed to realize what she'd said. I mean, not literally. Obviously. That would be weird. We just met. She was talking faster now. I just meant I'm really grateful. The website thing has been stressing me out. Jimmy stood up, smiling. I know what you meant. Right. Good. They stood there for a moment, something shifting in the air between them. So, Jimmy said. Coffee? Carolyn checked her watch. I still have 2 hours until closing. I can wait. You're going to wait 2 hours in a bookstore? I can think of worse ways to spend a Saturday evening. Don't you have somewhere else to be? Important billionaire things to do. Not really. I was supposed to be on a conference call, but I walked out. Rebellious. Felt good, actually. She smiled at that. Okay. You can stay. But you have to actually read that book you bought. No just sitting there on your phone. Deal. Jimmy took the book and settled into one of the reading chairs near the front window. Carolyn went back to work, helping the occasional customer who wandered in, restocking shelves, doing whatever it was bookstore owners did on a slow Saturday afternoon. He tried to focus on the book. He really did. But his attention kept drifting to her. The way she talked to customers, recommending books with genuine enthusiasm. The way she moved through the space like she knew every inch of it. The way she caught him watching her once and smiled before turning back to her work. At 5:45, she flipped the sign on the door to closed. You actually stayed, she said, walking over to where he sat. I said I would. Most people don't mean what they say. I'm not most people. No. She tilted her head slightly. I'm starting to see that. So where do you want to go? There's a place 2 blocks from here. Nothing fancy. Fancy is overrated. They left the store together, Carolyn locking the door behind them. The evening air was cool, typical for June in Seattle. The street was busy with people heading to dinner, to bars, to wherever people went on Saturday nights. The coffee shop was exactly what she'd promised. Small, local, with mismatched furniture and art from neighborhood artists on the walls. They ordered at the counter. Jimmy reached for his wallet, but Carolyn shook her head. I've got it. You don't have to do that. You fixed my website. Least I can do is buy you a coffee. They found a table by the window. The coffee was good, better than the chain place near his office. So, Carolyn said, wrapping her hands around her mug. Tell me something real. What do you mean? Everyone knows the Wikipedia version of Jimmy Lupton. Built a company, sold it for a fortune, now invests in tech startups and sits on various boards. But that's not real. That's just facts. What do you want to know? Why you walked out of your conference call today? Jimmy considered the question. Because they were talking in circles. 12 people on the call, everyone protecting their territory, nobody actually solving the problem. So you left. So I left. Ended up at your bookstore. Lucky me. She said it lightly, but her eyes were serious. Maybe lucky both of us. She took a sip of coffee. Your turn. Ask me something real. Why books? Because books were there when people weren't. She said it simply, without drama. My mom died 3 years ago. Cancer. Before that, we were close. After she got sick, I started reading to her. Everything. Novels, poetry, weird nonfiction about octopi. Whatever she wanted. I'm sorry. Thank you. She looked down at her mug. After she passed, I had some money from her life insurance. Not a lot, but enough to either pay off my student loans or do something meaningful. Chose meaningful. The bookstore. The bookstore. It's probably not the smartest financial decision I've ever made. But it matters to you. It matters to me. She met his eyes. Does that sound naive? No. It sounds honest. They talked for another hour. About books, about business, about Seattle and how much it had changed in the last decade. She made him laugh with a story about a customer who tried to return a book because the ending made her mad. He told her about the early days of his company, working out of a basement with 2 other guys who were better at coding than sleeping. Do you miss it? Carolyn asked. Building something from scratch? Sometimes. But I don't miss the stress. The constant feeling that everything could fall apart. I know that feeling. The bookstore? The bookstore. She checked her phone. It's almost 8. I should probably head home. Jimmy didn't want the evening to end. Can I walk you to your car? I don't have a car. I live 6 blocks from the store. Then can I walk you home? She studied him for a moment. You're very persistent. Is that a problem? I haven't decided yet. They left the coffee shop and started walking. The neighborhood was quieter now, the dinner crowd settled into restaurants, the evening settling into night. This is me, Carolyn said, stopping in front of a narrow apartment building. Nice neighborhood. It's loud sometimes. But I like being able to walk to work. They stood there on the sidewalk, neither quite ready to say goodbye. I'd like to see you again, Jimmy said. We just had coffee. I mean on an actual date. This wasn't a date? You said it wasn't. I said I wasn't going to kiss you. I didn't say it wasn't a date. He smiled. So it was a date? Maybe. Retroactively. Then I'd like a second date. Carolyn pulled out her phone. Give me your number. He did, watching as she typed it in. I'll text you, she said. Maybe. Should I be worried about that maybe? Probably. But she was smiling when she said it, and when his phone buzzed 30 seconds after she went inside, the text just said, "Made it home safe. Thanks for fixing my website." He texted back, "Thanks for the conversation." Her response came quickly, "Better than your conference call?" "Much better," he wrote. "Good. Read that book I sold you. Already started it. And? You might be right about a few things." "Only a few?" "Don't push your luck," he sent, smiling at his phone like a teenager. Her final text of the night was just a laughing emoji, but Jimmy stood on that sidewalk for another minute anyway, feeling something he hadn't felt in years. Like maybe this was the beginning of something real. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more emotional and heart-touching stories that speak to the soul, and share your thoughts in the comments to tell us which story you want to hear next. Now let us continue. Their first official date happened a week later, on June 22nd, at a small Italian restaurant in the University District that Carolyn said made the best carbonara in Seattle. Jimmy arrived 10 minutes early, which gave him time to be nervous. He couldn't remember the last time he'd been nervous about a date. Maybe never. Usually these things were simple, transactional even. Dinner, conversation, mutual assessment of compatibility. Nothing that made his palms sweat. Carolyn showed up exactly on time, wearing a blue sundress and the same white sneakers from before. Her hair was down tonight, natural curls framing her face. "You're early," she said, sliding into the seat across from him. "Habit. My assistant says I'm annoyingly punctual." "Is that a tech industry thing or a you thing?" "Probably a control thing, if I'm being honest." "At least you're self-aware." She picked up the menu. "Have you been here before?" "Never. I usually stick to downtown." "Then you've been missing out. This place has been here since the 70s. Family-owned, same recipes, zero interest in being trendy." The waiter appeared, a college-aged kid who clearly knew Carolyn. They chatted for a minute about his summer classes before he took their order and disappeared. "Regular?" Jimmy asked. "I come here maybe once a month. When the bookstore has a good week and I feel like celebrating." "How do you define a good week?" "Breaking even, mostly." She said it casually, but he caught the tension underneath. "Can I ask you something about the business?" "Depends on the question." "How are you really doing?" "Financially." Carolyn took a sip of water. "That's pretty direct for a first date." "Sorry. I can talk about something else." "No, it's fine." She set down her glass. "I'm doing okay. Not great, but okay. Online retailers make it tough for independent stores. I've got loyal customers, but loyal doesn't always translate to enough revenue." "Have you thought about expanding your online presence?" "With what budget?" "The website you fixed is basically held together with hope and cheap hosting." "What if you had help?" She gave him a look. "We've known each other a week. I'm not offering charity. I'm curious about the business model." "Why?" "Because I invest in small businesses sometimes. Ones I think have potential." "Jimmy." She leaned forward slightly. "I appreciate the interest, but I'm not looking for an investor. Especially not one I'm on a date with." "Fair enough. Off the table." "Just like that?" "Just like that. Your business, your call." She studied him for a moment. "You're used to getting what you want, aren't you?" "Usually. But I'm learning that what I want and what's good for me aren't always the same thing." "That sounds like there's a story there." The waiter brought their wine. Jimmy waited until he left before answering. "I was engaged once. 5 years ago, when I was 32. Her name was Rebecca. We met at a fundraiser, dated for a year, got engaged." "What happened?" "She wanted the life that came with who I was. The houses, the travel, the social circle. But she didn't actually want me. Took me embarrassingly long to figure that out." "How long?" 6 months after the engagement. She was planning this massive wedding, guest list of 400 people. I suggested we elope instead, just us. She looked at me like I'd suggested we get married at a gas station. Carolyn smiled. "What happened?" "I called it off. She kept the ring, which honestly felt fair. I'd wasted a year of her time trying to be what she wanted. That must have been hard." It was clarifying. "Made me realize I'd rather be alone than be with someone who doesn't actually see me." "And since then?" "A few dates here and there. Nothing serious. Mostly I work." "Sounds lonely." "It is sometimes." He met her eyes. "Your turn. Tell me something real." Carolyn broke off a piece of bread. "I haven't dated anyone seriously since my mom got sick. That was 4 years ago." "By choice?" "By circumstance, mostly. When she was sick, I didn't have time. After she died, I was building the business. And then it just became easier to not try." "Do you miss it?" "Sometimes. But dating requires energy I don't always have. She paused. I'm making an exception for you, though. Should I be flattered? Probably. I don't make exceptions often. Their food arrived. The carbonara was as good as she'd promised, rich and perfectly balanced. They talked about easier things for a while. Books they'd loved, movies they'd hated, the strange microcultures of different Seattle neighborhoods. Okay, lightning round, Carolyn said, twirling pasta on her fork. Favorite book? East of Eden. Really? The tech billionaire like Steinbeck. Is that surprising? A little. I figured you for a Malcolm Gladwell guy. I read those too. But East of Eden stuck with me. The whole thing about Timshel, the idea that we can choose who we become. I like that answer. She took a bite. Okay, your turn. Ask me something. Biggest fear. Wow, going deep. You started it with the real conversation thing. She set down her fork. Biggest fear is that I'll put everything into the bookstore and it'll fail anyway. That 4 years from now, I'll be closing the doors and wondering what I could have done differently. That's not failure. That's risk. Tell that to my bank account. I'm serious. Most people never try. They have the safe job, the predictable life. You built something that matters. It won't matter if I can't keep the lights on. How bad is it really? Carolyn hesitated. I've got about 6 months of runway. Maybe 8 if I'm careful. After that, I'll need to make some changes or close up. What kind of changes? I don't know yet. Smaller space, fewer staff hours. I have one part-time employee, a graduate student named Marcus. He works weekends. I'd probably have to let him go. Have you thought about events? Author readings, book clubs, things that bring people in. I do some of that. But it's hard to compete with the big stores that can pay authors actual money to show up. What if you focused on local authors? People who want the community connection more than the paycheck. She tilted her head. That's actually not a bad idea. I have them occasionally. Occasionally, huh? I'm trying to be humble. It's not natural for me. She laughed. At least you admit it. They finished dinner and walked out into the warm June evening. The sun was just starting to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Want to walk for a bit? Jimmy asked. Sure. They headed toward the waterfront, joining the stream of people enjoying the weather. The conversation flowed easily, moving from topic to topic without the awkward pauses that usually marked first dates. Can I ask you something? Carolyn said as they walked along the pier. Anything. What do you actually do all day? Like, you sold your company. You're clearly set for life. So what fills your time? Honestly? A lot of meetings. I sit on 3 boards, advise a handful of startups. I have a venture fund that looks at early-stage companies. Does it make you happy? The question caught him off guard. I don't know if happy is the right word. It's fulfilling. Interesting. But not happy. Not always, no. What would make you happy? He looked out at the water, considering the question. Building something again, maybe. Something mine. Not advising or investing, but actually creating. So why don't you? Because I'm 37 and I already did that. It feels indulgent to start over. That's ridiculous. Is it? Yes. You're 37, not 70. You've got decades to build whatever you want. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You're just now noticing. They found a bench overlooking Elliott Bay and sat down. A ferry was making its way across the water, lights beginning to glow as the sky darkened. I like this, Carolyn said quietly. The view? All of it. The walk, the conversation. You. Jimmy felt something shift in his chest. I like you too. Good. Because I was worried this was one-sided. Not even a little bit. She turned to face him. So what happens now? What do you want to happen? I want to see you again. And again after that. But I need you to understand something first. Okay. I don't need rescuing. My business might be struggling, but that's my problem to solve. If we're going to do this, it has to be separate from all that. I understand. Do you? Because you're a fixer. I can tell. You see problems and you want to solve them. You're not wrong. So I need you to not try to fix me or my bookstore. Can you do that? Jimmy considered lying, making it easy. But she'd asked for real, and real was what he needed to give her. I can try. But it's going to be hard. Especially if I care about you. I appreciate the honesty. But I promise I won't do anything without asking first. Your business, your choices. She smiled. I can work with that. They sat there for another hour, talking as the sky went from pink to purple to dark. When Carolyn finally checked her phone, it was almost 10. I should get home. Early morning tomorrow. The bookstore? And inventory. Super glamorous. He walked her to her apartment, the same building from the week before. They stood on the sidewalk, neither quite ready to say goodnight. "Thank you for dinner," Carolyn said. "Thank you for the company." "So, second date?" "Definitely. When are you free?" "Wednesday evening? I close early on Wednesdays." "Wednesday works. I'll text you." "You better." She stood on her toes and kissed his cheek, quick and soft, before heading inside. Jimmy walked back to where he'd parked, touching his cheek and feeling like a complete idiot for how much that small gesture meant. His phone buzzed as he reached his car. "Made it home. Thanks for not trying to fix all my problems on the first date." He smiled and typed back, "It was difficult, but I managed." Her response, "I noticed. Gold star for effort." "Same time Wednesday?" "It's a date." Literally. Jimmy drove home to his house in Madison Park, the kind of place that had been featured in architecture magazines. Floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist furniture, a view of Lake Washington that people paid millions for. It was beautiful and perfectly designed and felt absolutely empty. He'd bought it 3 years ago, right after the company sale went through. Hired a designer, picked everything from a catalog, moved in and realized he'd created a showroom instead of a home. He poured himself a drink and sat on the balcony, looking at the lake and thinking about Carolyn. The way she challenged him, the way she wasn't impressed by his money or his success. The way she'd looked at him when she talked about her bookstore, passionate and worried and determined all at once. His phone rang. His business partner, David. "Hey, where'd you disappear to yesterday? You just left the call." "Yeah, sorry about that. It wasn't going anywhere productive." "Fair. But we need to make a decision on the Henderson deal by Monday." "I know. I'll look at the numbers tomorrow." "You okay? You sound different." "I'm fine. Just thinking." "About what?" "Life. What I'm doing with it." David laughed. "That's deep for a Saturday night. You drinking alone again?" "Maybe. Want company?" "Actually, no. I'm good." "Allricht, man. See you Monday." Jimmy hung up and went back to looking at the water. His phone buzzed again. "Still up?" Carolyn had written. "Yeah. Can't sleep." "Me neither." Her next text came quickly. "I keep thinking about what you said. About building something new. And I think you should do it. Life's too short to do things that just fill time." He stared at the message, feeling something click into place. "You're right," he typed back. "I usually am. You're just slow to catch on." He smiled. "Good night, Carolyn." "Good night, Jimmy. See you Wednesday." He sat there for a long time after that, his drink forgotten, thinking about bookstores and new beginnings and the sound of her laugh. Wednesday couldn't come fast enough. Over the next 2 weeks, they fell into a rhythm. Dinner on Wednesday, coffee on Saturday afternoons at the shop after she closed. Long conversations that stretched into evening, texts throughout the day that made him smile during boring meetings. He learned that she was allergic to shellfish, that she'd wanted to be a teacher before she opened the bookstore, that her favorite color was yellow even though she almost never wore it. She learned that he stress-baked when he couldn't sleep, that he'd been a mediocre student until college when something finally clicked, that he missed his sister who'd moved to Portland 5 years ago and rarely visited. By early July, Jimmy realized he was rearranging his schedule around seeing her. Turning down dinner invitations, leaving the office early, checking his phone constantly for her messages. "You're seeing someone," his assistant Emma said one afternoon, not even looking up from her computer. "What makes you say that?" "You've turned down 3 networking events this month and you keep smiling at your phone. Either you're seeing someone or you've developed a social media addiction." "The first one." "Good for you. What's her name?" "Carolyn. And she's smart and funny and she owns a bookstore and she doesn't care that I'm rich." Emma looked up at that. "Seriously? Seriously. It's actually kind of amazing. Don't screw it up." "Thanks for the vote of confidence." "I mean it. You've been alone too long. It's made you weird." "I'm not weird. You alphabetize your desk supplies. That's efficient." "It's weird. But endearing. Mostly." On July 10th, 3 weeks after their first date, Jimmy took Carolyn to a concert at the Seattle Center. Some indie band she liked that he'd never heard of. They sat on the lawn as the sun set, surrounded by other couples and families, the music washing over them. Halfway through the third song, she leaned her head on his shoulder. Such a small gesture, but it felt monumental. He wrapped his arm around her, and they stayed like that through the rest of the concert. When it ended and people started packing up, neither of them moved. "I don't want this to end," Carolyn said quietly. "The concert or the night?" "Both. Either. I don't know. We could walk for a while." "Okay." They ended up at a late-night diner, the kind with vinyl booths and laminated menus and coffee that tasted like it had been sitting for hours. It was perfect. Can I tell you something? Jimmy said, playing with his coffee cup. Always. I haven't felt this way in a really long time. Maybe ever. What way? Like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Carolyn reached across the table and took his hand. Me too. They left the diner close to midnight and he walked her home, their hands linked, neither one talking much because they didn't need to. At her apartment building, she turned to face him. Come upstairs, she said. Are you sure? Very sure. He followed her up 3 flights of stairs to her apartment. It was small but carefully put together. Books everywhere, plants on the windowsills, art on the walls that looked like she'd collected it over years. It's not much, she said, suddenly seeming nervous. It's perfect. It's you. She kissed him then, soft at first and then deeper, her hands in his hair, his arms around her waist. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, she smiled. I've wanted to do that for weeks. Why didn't you? I was trying to be patient. See if this was real. And? It's real. He kissed her again, and they ended up on her couch, talking and kissing and talking some more until the skies started to lighten outside her windows. I should let you sleep, Jimmy said, even though leaving was the last thing he wanted to do. Or you could stay. No pressure, just sleep. You sure? I'm sure. They fell asleep on her couch, tangled together, the morning light filtering through the curtains. It was the best sleep Jimmy had gotten in years. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more emotional and heart-touching stories that speak to the soul, and share your thoughts in the comments to tell us which story you want to hear next. Now let us continue. By mid-August, Jimmy had become a fixture at Smith & Stories. He'd come by on Saturday afternoons, coffee in hand, and find reasons to stay. Sometimes he'd help Carolyn reorganize shelves, other times he'd just read while she worked. The regulars had stopped giving him curious looks and started treating him like part of the furniture. You know you don't have to be here every weekend, Carolyn said one afternoon, watching him alphabetize the mystery section. What if I want to be here? Then I'm not going to stop you. But doesn't a billionaire have better things to do on a Saturday? Apparently not. She came over and kissed the top of his head. You missed one. Patterson goes after Paritsky. I knew that. Sure you did. It was easy, being with her. Easier than anything had been in years. They'd fallen into a rhythm that felt natural. Dinners at her place or his, walks around the city, quiet evenings where they just existed in the same space without needing to fill every silence. On August 20th, they were at his house in Madison Park, cooking dinner together. Or rather, Carolyn was cooking while Jimmy chopped vegetables under her direction. Smaller pieces, she said, glancing over his shoulder. We're not feeding giants. I thought I was doing well. You're doing fine. Just need smaller pieces. You're very particular about your vegetables. I'm particular about everything. You should know this by now. He set down the knife and turned to face her. I do know. I love that about you. The words hung in the air for a moment. He hadn't planned to say it like that, casual and domestic while standing in his kitchen. But there it was. Carolyn went still. What did you just say? I said I love that about you. Jimmy. I love you. He said it clearly this time, no ambiguity. I've probably loved you since you told me my book choice was garbage. But definitely by the second date. And absolutely by now. She put down the spoon she'd been holding. You mean that? I wouldn't say it if I didn't. I love you too. She said it quietly, almost wonderingly. I didn't think I would. I was trying really hard not to, actually. But I do. He kissed her then, soft and slow, tasting like the marinara sauce she'd been stirring. When they broke apart, she was smiling. The sauce is going to burn. I don't care. Ido. I worked hard on that sauce. She turned back to the stove, but she was still smiling, and when he wrapped his arms around her from behind, she leaned into him. This is nice, she murmured. Yeah? Yeah. Domestic. Normal. Is that good? It's perfect. They ate dinner on his balcony, watching the sunset over Lake Washington. The conversation drifted from topic to topic, comfortable and easy. I've been thinking, Carolyn said, setting down her wine glass. About what? The bookstore. Those ideas you had about local author events? I'm going to try it. Really? Really? I reached out to a few writers I know from the Seattle art scene. Set up a reading series for September. First Thursday of every month. That's great. I'm nervous about it. What if nobody shows up? They'll show up. You're good at building community. People will come. I hope you're right. I usually am. She threw a piece of bread at him. Don't get cocky. Too late. But she was smiling, and when they went inside later, she pulled him to the couch and they stayed there talking until almost midnight. I should go home, Carolyn said, checking her phone. Stay. I don't have anything here. I'll give you a shirt. We can pick up your stuff in the morning. You just want me to stay. Yes. Is that working? She pretended to think about it. Maybe. I'll make you breakfast. Now you're speaking my language. She stayed. Not for the first time, but it still felt significant somehow. Like they were building something real, piece by piece. In the morning, Jimmy made pancakes while Carolyn sat on his kitchen counter, still wearing his shirt, drinking coffee and telling him about the first book she'd ever loved. Charlotte's Web. I was 6. Cried for an hour when Charlotte died. That's rough for a 6-year-old. My mom had to explain that death was part of life, that Charlotte got to have a full existence before she died. I didn't really get it then, but I think about it a lot now. Because of your mom? Yeah. She was only 62. That didn't feel like a full existence. Jimmy flipped a pancake. Tell me about her. She was a teacher. 3rd grade. Loved her students, loved books, loved making people laugh. When she got sick, she was more worried about her students than herself. She sounds wonderful. She was. You would have liked her. She had opinions about everything, just like me. I definitely would have liked her. They ate breakfast on the balcony again. It was becoming their spot, this space overlooking the water where they could just be. What are you thinking about? Carolyn asked. How much my life has changed in 2 months. Good change or bad change? The best change. She reached across the table and took his hand. For me too. The first author event at Smith & Stories happened on September 5th. Jimmy helped Carolyn set up folding chairs in the small space between the shelves, arranging them in a semicircle facing the reading area. What if this is a disaster? Carolyn asked, adjusting a chair for the 3rd time. It won't be. But what if it is? Then we'll learn from it and do better next time. I'm invested now. This is a team effort. She smiled at that. Okay. Team effort. The author was a local poet named Sandra Martinez, someone Carolyn knew from the Seattle arts community. She showed up early, nervous but excited, carrying a worn copy of her own book. People started arriving at 6:30. First a few regulars, then some faces Carolyn didn't recognize. By 7, when the reading was supposed to start, there were 35 people crammed into the bookstore. Oh my God, Carolyn whispered to Jimmy. Where did they all come from? You built it. They came. The reading was beautiful. Sandra read poems about her grandmother, about growing up in South Seattle, about loving this city even when it didn't love her back. People laughed and cried and asked thoughtful questions during the Q&A after. Carolyn sold 16 copies of Sandra's book. After everyone left and they were cleaning up, she just stood in the middle of the store, looking around with this expression of quiet wonder. You okay? Jimmy asked. I'm more than okay. This is what I wanted when I opened this place. Community. Connection. People caring about books and stories. You did that. We did that. He helped her stack the chairs and sweep the floor. When they were done, she locked the door and turned to him. Thank you for believing in this. In me. Always. But even as things were getting better with the events, Jimmy could see the stress building. Carolyn was working longer hours, trying to balance the new programming with the day-to-day reality of keeping the store running. One evening in late September, he came by after closing and found her at the desk, staring at her computer with her head in her hands. Hey, he said softly. She looked up. Hey. What's wrong? Just numbers. They're not adding up the way I need them to. Can I look? She hesitated, then turned the screen toward him. He pulled up a chair and studied the spreadsheet. Revenue, expenses, projections for the next quarter. The events are helping, he said. Book sales are up 12% from last month. I know. But it's not enough. Rent went up. My distributor raised their minimum order. I'm still looking at maybe 4 months before I have to make some hard decisions. What kind of decisions? Smaller space. Or closing. She said it matter-of-factly, but he could hear the pain underneath. There has to be another option. I'm open to suggestions. Jimmy looked at the numbers again. What if you expanded the events? Made them weekly instead of monthly? I don't have the capacity for that. What if you had help? Hired someone part-time to coordinate programming. With what money? What if I helped with that? Carolyn turned to face him. We talked about this. I know. But hear me out. Not an investment. A loan. Low interest, flexible terms. You pay me back when the business is stable. Jimmy. I'm not trying to fix you. I'm trying to help someone I love build something meaningful. There's a difference. She was quiet for a long moment. What are the terms? Whatever makes sense for you. 5 years, 10 years, I don't care. No pressure, no timeline. Just enough runway to make the events work and get the store stable. How much are we talking about? How much do you need? Honestly? 50,000 would cover rent for a year and let me hire someone part-time for programming. But that's a lot of money. It's nothing to me. But it's everything to you. So let's do it. I need to think about it. Take all the time you need. She closed the laptop. Can we not talk about this right now? I just want to go home and not think about money. Of course. They went back to her apartment. Carolyn was quiet, more distant than usual. Jimmy gave her space, putting on music and starting dinner while she sat on the couch, staring at nothing. Talk to me, he said finally. I'm scared. Of what? That if I take money from you, it changes us. That this becomes about debt instead of partnership. He sat down beside her. It won't. I promise you, it won't. You can't promise that. Then I'll make sure of it. We'll write it all down, make it official, keep the business completely separate from us. What if the bookstore fails anyway? What if I take your money and still can't make it work? Then you tried. That's all anyone can do. She leaned against him. I hate needing help. I know. But I think I need to accept it anyway. Yeah. But we do this right. Contract, terms, everything official. I'm not taking $50,000 on a handshake. I'll have my lawyer draw something up. Thank you. She turned to look at him. And I mean it. Thank you for seeing what this place means to me. I see you, Carolyn. All of you. The stubborn parts and the scared parts and the brilliant parts. She kissed him then, soft and grateful, and they stayed on that couch for a long time, just holding each other. The contract took a week to finalize. Jimmy's lawyer drew up terms that were absurdly generous. 10-year repayment period, 3% interest, no penalties for early payment or late payments. Carolyn's lawyer looked it over and called her 3 times to confirm she was reading it correctly. This is the most borrower-friendly loan I've ever seen, he told her. I know. He must really care about you. He does. They signed the papers on October 1st, in Jimmy's downtown office. Formal and businesslike, even though they'd had dinner together the night before and he'd kissed her goodbye that morning. This feels weird, Carolyn said, signing her name. Good weird or bad weird? I don't know yet. Ask me in 6 months. The money transferred that afternoon. Carolyn immediately paid 3 months of rent in advance and put out a job posting for an events coordinator. That evening, she texted him, "It's real. The money's there. I don't know whether to celebrate or panic." His response, "Celebrate. Definitely celebrate." Her next text, "Come over. Bring champagne." He stopped at the store on his way, buying the good stuff and flowers because why not? When he got to her apartment, she opened the door with this huge smile. "We're doing this," she said. "You're doing this." "No. We. You're part of this now, whether you like it or not." "I like it." They drank champagne on her tiny balcony, toasting to bookstores and new beginnings and taking risks that scared you. "I love you," Carolyn said, slightly tipsy and completely sincere. "I love you too." "No, I mean I really love you. Like, terrifyingly much." "Good. Because same." She kissed him, tasting like champagne and hope, and Jimmy thought about how 2 months ago he'd been living a life that looked successful but felt empty. Now he was here, on a cramped balcony in Capitol Hill, with a woman who challenged him and inspired him and made him want to be better. He'd never been happier. But happiness, he was about to learn, could be fragile. 3 days later, everything changed. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more emotional and heart-touching stories that speak to the soul, and share your thoughts in the comments to tell us which story you want to hear next. Now let us continue. The problem started with a phone call on October 4th. Jimmy was in a board meeting when his phone buzzed repeatedly. He ignored it the first 3 times, but when it kept going, he excused himself and stepped into the hallway. 7 missed calls from David, his business partner. 3 voicemails. He called back. Finally, David answered. "Where have you been?" "In a meeting." "What's going on?" "We have a situation." "Can you get to the office?" "I'm downtown. I can be there in 10 minutes. "Make it 5. Jimmy grabbed his things and left, texting Carolyn on the way, "Something came up at work. Might be late tonight." Her response came quickly, "No problem. Handle your business. Love you." "Love you too." When he got to the office, David was in the conference room with their lawyer and 2 people Jimmy didn't recognize. "What's this about?" Jimmy asked. David gestured to the strangers. "This is Rebecca Chen and Marcus Okoye from the Federal Trade Commission." Jimmy's stomach dropped. "The FTC? We need to ask you some questions about your investment activities," Rebecca said, pulling out a folder. "Specifically regarding potential conflicts of interest in your advisory roles." The next 2 hours were a blur of questions and documents and carefully worded answers. Apparently, one of the startups Jimmy had advised had merged with a company where he sat on the board. The FTC was investigating whether he'd used privileged information to benefit financially. He hadn't. Everything had been above board, disclosed properly, vetted by lawyers. But the investigation didn't care about that yet. They just wanted information. When the FTC representatives finally left, Jimmy collapsed into a chair. "How bad is this?" he asked the lawyer. "Honestly? Probably nothing. But it's going to take time to resolve. Weeks, maybe months. And it's going to be public. Public. They have to file the investigation. It'll be in the news by tomorrow." Jimmy closed his eyes. "Great. We'll issue a statement," the lawyer continued. "Emphasize your cooperation, your track record of ethical business practices. But you should prepare for some negative press." David waited until the lawyer left before speaking. "You okay?" "Not really. This is going to blow over. You know that, right?" "I know. But it's still going to be messy." Jimmy's phone buzzed. A news alert. The story was already breaking. He drove to Carolyn's apartment, needing to see her, needing something solid and real in a day that had gone completely sideways. She opened the door in sweatpants and one of his old t-shirts, her hair wrapped in a scarf. "Hey, I wasn't expecting you until later." Then she saw his face. "What happened? Can I come in?" "Of course." He told her everything. The investigation, the accusations, the fact that it was going to be all over the news. She listened without interrupting, her hand in his. "But you didn't do anything wrong," she said when he finished. "No. But that doesn't matter right now. There's going to be an investigation, lawyers, probably congressional hearings if this gets big enough. How long will it take? Months. Maybe longer." She squeezed his hand. "Okay. So we deal with it." You think I'm going anywhere? I'd understand if you wanted distance. This is going to be ugly." "Jimmy." She turned to face him fully. "I love you. That doesn't change because you're dealing with some bureaucratic nonsense." "It's not nonsense. It's serious." "I know it's serious. But you didn't do anything wrong, so we'll get through it." He pulled her into a hug, holding on tight. "I don't deserve you." "Probably not. But you're stuck with me anyway." They stayed like that for a long time, her warmth and certainty anchoring him. The next few weeks were brutal. The story was everywhere. Not front-page news, but present enough to be constant background noise. His phone rang non-stop with reporters, lawyers, business associates offering support or distancing themselves depending on their risk tolerance. Jimmy tried to keep it separate from Carolyn, from their time together, but it was impossible. The stress bled into everything. "You need to eat," Carolyn said one evening, watching him push food around his plate. "I'm not hungry." "You haven't been hungry in 3 days. That's not sustainable." "I'll eat tomorrow." "Jimmy, what do you want me to say? I'm being investigated by the federal government. My reputation is being questioned. Eating feels pretty low on the priority list." She set down her fork. "I get that you're stressed. But you can't just shut down." "I'm not shutting down." "You are. You're here physically, but you're not present." He knew she was right, but knowing didn't make it easier to fix. "I'm sorry." "Don't apologize. Just talk to me." "About what?" "About how you're feeling. About what you need." "I don't know what I need." "Okay. Then let's start smaller. What do you need right now, in this moment?" He thought about it. "To feel like something in my life isn't falling apart." The bookstore hired an events coordinator. Her name is Maya. She starts next week. "That's great. We've got 3 events scheduled for November. Maya has ideas for December too, a whole holiday series. You must be excited." "I am. But I'd be more excited if you were actually listening." "I am listening." "No, you're hearing me. There's a difference." He set down his fork. "You're right. I'm sorry. Tell me about Maya." Carolyn studied him for a moment, then started talking about the new hire, about the plans for the store, about a difficult customer who'd wanted to return a book they'd clearly read all the way through. Jimmy tried to focus, tried to be present, but his mind kept drifting back to the investigation, to the lawyers, to everything that could go wrong. Later that night, lying in bed, Carolyn rolled over to face him. "Can I ask you something?" "Always." "Are you pulling away from me?" "What?" "No. Because it feels like you are. Like you're here but not really here." "I'm just distracted." "I know. But I need you to tell me if this is too much. If dealing with your stuff and my stuff is more than you can handle." "It's not too much." "You sure?" "I'm sure." He pulled her closer. "I love you. This investigation is temporary. We're not." "Okay." But she didn't sound entirely convinced. By mid-October, the investigation had expanded. More questions, more documents, more hours with lawyers going through every transaction, every email, every decision he'd made in the last 3 years. Jimmy stopped going to Carolyn's author events. He told himself he was too busy, too distracted, that she didn't need him there anyway. But the truth was simpler and worse. He was pulling away. Not consciously. Not intentionally. But bit by bit, he was creating distance. Carolyn noticed. "You missed the event last night," she said when he finally called her on October 17th. "I know. I'm sorry. The lawyers needed me." "At 7 at night? We're on a deadline." "Okay." The silence stretched between them. "Are you mad?" he asked. "No. Just disappointed. I said I was sorry." "I know you did. But sorry doesn't change the fact that you promised you'd be there and you weren't. It was one event, Carolyn. It's not about the event. It's about you disappearing into this investigation and taking our relationship with you. That's not fair. Isn't it? When's the last time we had dinner together? Actually sat down and talked?" He tried to remember. "Last week. Try 2 weeks ago. And even then, you were on your phone half the time. I'm dealing with a lot right now. I know you are. But I'm here, trying to be supportive, and you won't let me in. I'm protecting you. From what? From all of this. The stress, the press, the uncertainty. I don't need protecting. I need my boyfriend to actually be present in our relationship." Jimmy rubbed his face. "I don't know how to do both right now. How to deal with this and be what you need. I'm not asking you to be anything except honest with me. Tell me when you're overwhelmed. Tell me when you need space. But don't just disappear. You're right. I know I'm right. The question is whether you're going to do anything about it." "I will. I promise." "Okay." She sighed. "I have to go. Store opens in 20 minutes. I love you. I love you too. But love isn't enough if you're not actually here." She hung up before he could respond. Jimmy sat in his office, staring at his phone, feeling the weight of everything pressing down on him. The investigation, the business, the relationship that was clearly suffering because he didn't know how to balance it all. David knocked on the door frame. "You look like hell." "Thanks. When's the last time you slept?" "I don't know. Tuesday?" "It's Thursday." "Then Tuesday." David came in and sat down. "Talk to me." "About what?" "About whatever's eating you besides the FTC thing. Carolyn and I are struggling." "Because of the investigation?" "Because I'm terrible at relationships apparently." "You're not terrible. You're just stressed and dealing with a lot." That's what I told her. She didn't buy it. Maybe because it's a cop-out. Jimmy looked up. "Excuse me? You heard me. You're using the investigation as an excuse to pull away because that's what you do when things get hard. You did it with Rebecca too. That was completely different. Was it? Or do you just have a pattern of sabotaging good things when you're scared?" "I'm not scared." "You're terrified. Of the investigation, sure, but also of how much you care about Carolyn. So you're creating distance before she can. That's ridiculous." "Is it?" David stood up. "Look, I'm not a therapist. But I've known you for 15 years, and I've seen you do this before. Don't mess this up because you're afraid." After David left, Jimmy sat alone with that thought. Was he sabotaging things? Creating distance because some part of him expected Carolyn to leave anyway? He picked up his phone and texted her, "Can we talk? Actually talk?" Her response took 10 minutes, "Yes. Come over tonight. I'll be there at 7. "Okay." Jimmy spent the rest of the day finishing what he could, delegating what he couldn't, and leaving the office at 5 for the first time in weeks. He stopped at the market, bought ingredients for dinner, and showed up at Carolyn's apartment at 7 on the dot. She opened the door, surprise evident on her face. "You brought groceries. I'm making you dinner. If that's okay." "That's very okay." He cooked while she sat at her small kitchen table, watching him. Pasta with marinara, the same thing they'd made together the night he first told her he loved her. "You remembered," she said softly. "Of course I remembered." They ate on her balcony, the October air cool but not cold yet. For a while, neither of them spoke. Then Jimmy set down his fork. "You were right. About all of it." "About what specifically?" "About me pulling away. About not being present. About using the investigation as an excuse." Carolyn waited, letting him continue. "I'm scared," he admitted. "Of the investigation, yeah, but more of losing you. And some stupid part of my brain decided that pulling away first would hurt less than waiting for you to realize I'm too much work." "That is stupid." "I know. I'm not going anywhere, Jimmy. But I need you to trust that. Actually trust it, not just say you do." "I'm trying." "I know. But try harder." She reached across the table. "I'm on your side. We're supposed to be a team, remember? Team effort. Exactly. I'm sorry I missed your event. I'm sorry I made it about me when you're clearly drowning. You didn't. I was drowning and taking you down with me. They cleaned up together, falling into an easy rhythm that had been missing for weeks. Later, curled up on her couch, Carolyn spoke quietly. What do you need from me? To get through this? Patience. And maybe reminders that I'm being an idiot when I start pulling away again. I can do that. What do you need from me? Show up. Even when it's hard. Even when you're tired or stressed or overwhelmed. Just be here. I can do that. She kissed him, soft and sweet and forgiving. We're going to be okay. Yeah? Yeah. But you have to let me in, Jimmy. All the way in. Not just the good parts. Okay. He pulled her closer. I'm going to mess this up sometimes. I know. So will I. But we'll figure it out. They fell asleep on her couch again, tangled together like that first night, and Jimmy felt something ease in his chest. The investigation was still there, still terrifying, still uncertain. But this, them, felt solid again. The next morning, he woke to Carolyn making coffee in the kitchen, humming something under her breath. He watched her for a moment, this woman who'd somehow become his entire world in 4 months. What are you thinking about? She asked, catching him staring. How lucky I am. Good answer. Come back to bed. I have to open the store in an hour. So we have an hour. She laughed but came back to the couch anyway, settling into his arms. This is nice. It is. Let's not forget this. When things get hard again, let's remember this is worth fighting for. Deal. They stayed like that until she absolutely had to leave, stealing a few more minutes of peace before reality came back in. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more emotional and heart-touching stories that speak to the soul, and share your thoughts in the comments to tell us which story you want to hear next. Now let us continue. The FTC investigation wrapped up on October 23 with a single-page letter stating that no evidence of wrongdoing had been found. After 6 weeks of stress, sleepless nights, and constant legal review, it ended with bureaucratic efficiency and zero fanfare. Jimmy read the letter 3 times in his lawyer's office, waiting for the other shoe to drop. That's it? He asked. That's it, his lawyer confirmed. You're clear. We'll issue a statement, it'll get picked up by the business press, and this whole thing will be over. Just like that. Just like that. Jimmy walked out of the office into the late October afternoon, pulled out his phone, and called Carolyn. Hey, she answered. How'd the meeting go? It's over. They cleared me. Oh my God. Jimmy, that's amazing. Yeah. He felt like he should be more excited, but mostly he just felt exhausted. Can I see you? I'm at the store until 6, but come by. We can celebrate after. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He showed up with flowers from the market near her store. Carolyn was helping a customer when he walked in, but she smiled when she saw him, that full genuine smile that still made his chest tight. When the customer left, she came over and kissed him. You brought me flowers. Seemed appropriate. They're beautiful. How do you feel? Honestly? Kind of numb. Like I used up all my emotions over the last 6 weeks and now there's nothing left. That's fair. It's been a lot. Maya, the new events coordinator, emerged from the back room carrying a box of books. She was in her late 20s, enthusiastic in a way that reminded Jimmy of Carolyn when she talked about the store. Jimmy, right? Maya set down the box and extended her hand. Carolyn talks about you constantly. Does she? Only good things. Mostly. Mostly? He looked at Carolyn. I may have mentioned you're terrible at texting back. That's fair. Maya laughed. Well, congratulations on the investigation thing. Carolyn's been stress-baking about it for weeks. I don't stress-bake, Carolyn protested. You made 17 dozen cookies last week. We had events. People eat cookies at events. We had 2 events. With maybe 30 people total. That's not 17 dozen cookies worth of people. Jimmy smiled. She stress-bakes. I do it too. See? Maya said to Carolyn. You're perfect for each other. Anyway, I have to finish inventory. Congratulations again, Jimmy. She disappeared into the back room, leaving them alone. 17 dozen cookies? Jimmy asked. I was worried about you. Baking helps me think. What were you thinking about? How to be supportive without being overbearing. Whether you were actually okay or just saying you were. Normal girlfriend stuff. I'm sorry I made you worry. Don't be. That's what people do when they love each other. They worry. She squeezed his hand. But now we can stop worrying and just celebrate. What did you have in mind? Dinner at that Italian place. The one where we had our first date. Perfect. They closed up the store together at 6. Jimmy helped Carolyn count the register and lock up while Maya organized the back room for tomorrow's shipment. At the restaurant, they got the same table they'd had back in June. 5 months ago, when they'd barely known each other, when Jimmy had been nervous and Carolyn had been skeptical. "Remember when you told me you weren't looking for an investor?" Jimmy asked after they'd ordered. "I remember you agreeing very quickly and then bringing it up again 3 weeks later." In my defense, I waited a reasonable amount of time. Barely. But it worked out. It did. She took a sip of wine. "The loan is the best decision I've made for the business. We're up 23% from this time last year. That's amazing. Maya's events are bringing in new customers. People come for the readings and stay to browse. Some of them become regulars. See? You just needed a little runway. I needed to stop being stubborn and accept help." She smiled. "Character growth. How's it feel?" "Weird but good. Like I'm actually building something sustainable instead of just surviving month to month." Their food arrived. They ate slowly, talking about everything and nothing. The conversation felt easy again, the way it had before the investigation consumed everything. "I want to ask you something," Jimmy said, setting down his fork. "Okay. Move in with me." Carolyn blinked. "What? I know it's fast. We've only been together 5 months. But I love you, and I hate the nights when you're not there, and I want to wake up next to you every morning." "Jimmy, you don't have to answer right now. Just think about it." She was quiet for a moment, processing. "You have a beautiful house. I have an empty house that only feels like a home when you're in it." That's a good line. It's also true. "What about my lease? I've got 8 months left. We'll cover the break fee. Or keep it as storage. I don't care about the logistics. I just want you there." Carolyn looked at him, something soft and wondering in her expression. "You really mean this?" "I really mean this." "Okay. Okay, you'll think about it, or okay, you'll do it?" "Okay, I'll do it. Yes. Let's do this completely impulsive thing that probably makes no practical sense." Jimmy felt his face split into a grin. Yeah. But I'm bringing all my books. I'd be disappointed if you didn't. And my couch. Your couch is terrible. I love that couch. Fine. We'll find a place for your terrible couch." She laughed, and he kissed her across the table, not caring that they were in a restaurant, not caring about anything except this moment and this woman and the future they were building. They spent the next 2 weeks coordinating the move. Carolyn gave notice on her apartment, packed up 5 years of accumulated belongings, and somehow fit 17 boxes of books into Jimmy's house. "I thought I had a lot of books," Jimmy said, watching her unpack another box into the shelves in what had been his study. "You have maybe 200 books. I have over 1,000. Where were you keeping them all?" "Very efficiently packed shelves. And under my bed. And in my closet." "Under your bed?" "The ones I was currently reading. It's a system. It's chaos. It's organized chaos." They christened every room in the house that first weekend. Laughed their way through assembling her terrible couch in what became the reading room. Cooked together in the kitchen that had felt too big and now felt exactly right. Fell asleep in his bed, now their bed, with her books on both nightstands and her clothes in the closet next to his. On November 15th, Jimmy woke before dawn to find Carolyn already awake, sitting on the balcony wrapped in a blanket, watching the lake. "You okay?" he asked, joining her. "More than okay. Just thinking." "About what?" "About how 6 months ago, I was trying to keep my business alive and convince myself I didn't need anyone. And now I have this whole life I didn't know I wanted." "Regrets?" "None." "You?" "Not a single one." She leaned into him. "What are we doing for Thanksgiving?" "I hadn't thought about it. Usually I just have dinner with David and his family." "My dad wants to meet you." Jimmy straightened. "Your dad? Don't sound so terrified. He's actually pretty great." "You've never mentioned your dad." "We're not super close. He remarried after my mom died, moved to Tacoma. But we talk every few weeks, and I told him about you." "What did you tell him?" "That I'm in love with a billionaire who fixes websites and stress bakes and makes me happier than I've been in years." "And he wants to meet me?" "He wants to make sure you're not secretly terrible." Standard dad stuff. "Okay. When?" "Thanksgiving?" "He's hosting. Just him, his wife Patricia, and us. Low-key. I can do low-key." Thanksgiving ended up being exactly what Carolyn had promised. Her father, Malcolm, was a retired teacher with strong opinions about everything and a dry sense of humor that reminded Jimmy exactly where Carolyn got hers. "So you're the billionaire," Malcolm said, shaking Jimmy's hand. "That's me. My daughter says you're not terrible despite that." "I try. Patricia, Malcolm's wife, was warm and welcoming in a way that immediately put Jimmy at ease. She hugged Carolyn like she'd known her for years, which apparently she had. Patricia helped take care of Ma toward the end, Carolyn explained later, helping Patricia in the kitchen. She's the reason Dad didn't fall apart after. Dinner was loud and full of laughter. Malcolm told stories about teaching middle school for 30 years. Patricia shared tales from her work at the public library. Carolyn and Jimmy traded barbs about his terrible book choices and her stubborn refusal to read anything published after 2010. That's not true, Carolyn protested. I read plenty of contemporary fiction. Name 3 books published this year that you haven't recommended to me. She couldn't, and everyone laughed while she threw a dinner roll at Jimmy's head. Later, while Carolyn and Patricia were doing dishes despite Jimmy and Malcolm's offers to help, Malcolm pulled Jimmy aside. Walk with me. They went out to the backyard, a small space with a view of the Sound in the distance. My daughter loves you, Malcolm said without preamble. I love her too. I can see that. But I need to know you're serious about this. I am. Completely. Because she's been through a lot. Losing her mother, building that business, trying to make something meaningful out of grief. I don't want to see her hurt. Neither do I. Sir, I know we've only been together 6 months, but Carolyn is it for me. I'm not going anywhere. Malcolm studied him for a long moment. You planning to marry her? Yes. When the time is right. What's stopping you? I want to make sure she's ready. That we're ready. You're living together. You're clearly committed. What are you waiting for? Jimmy considered that. I don't know. Maybe I'm just scared of messing it up. You will mess it up. Everyone does. Marriage is just choosing to mess it up together and figure it out anyway. Malcolm clapped him on the shoulder. But I think you know that already. They went back inside to find Carolyn and Patricia looking at old photo albums. Dad, are you interrogating my boyfriend? Carolyn called out. Just having a conversation. That's Dad speak for yes, he was definitely interrogating you, she said to Jimmy. I survived. Barely, from the looks of it. They left Tacoma late that evening, full of good food and better conversation. On the drive back to Seattle, Carolyn took Jimmy's hand. Thank you for today. For what? For being perfect with my dad. For fitting into my life like you've always been there. It wasn't hard. I like your dad. He likes you too. I could tell. How could you tell? He didn't threaten you even once. That's basically a declaration of approval. Jimmy laughed. Good to know I'm at the bar of not being threatened. It's a low bar, but an important one. When they got home, Carolyn headed straight for the bedroom, but Jimmy caught her hand. Wait. Come here for a second. She followed him to the balcony, their spot, where they'd had so many conversations over the last few months. The night was cold, the lake dark and still. What's up? Carolyn asked. Jimmy took a breath. He hadn't planned this. Didn't have a ring, didn't have a speech prepared. But suddenly it felt like the exact right moment. Your dad asked me if I was planning to marry you. Oh God. I'm so sorry. He has no filter. I told him yes. Carolyn went very still. You did? I did. Because it's true. I want to marry you, Carolyn. I want to build a life with you, grow old with you, argue about books with you for the next 50 years. Jimmy. I don't have a ring yet. I wanted to find the right one, something that actually means something. But I couldn't wait anymore. He took both her hands. Will you marry me? Tears were streaming down her face. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. Yes. She was laughing and crying at the same time. Yes, absolutely yes. He kissed her, tasting salt and joy, and they stood there on the balcony holding each other while the city lights sparkled around them. I can't believe you just proposed without a ring, Carolyn said eventually. Is that a problem? No. It's perfect. Very us. Completely impulsive and entirely right. They went inside and called everyone. Her father, who claimed he wasn't surprised. David, who said it was about time. Emma, Jimmy's assistant, who squealed so loud he had to hold the phone away from his ear. That night, lying in bed with Carolyn's head on his chest, Jimmy thought about how 6 months ago he'd walked into a bookstore to escape a boring conference call. What are you thinking about? Carolyn murmured. That I should walk out of more meetings. What? Nothing. Just that I love you. I love you too, fiancé. That's going to take some getting used to. You have the rest of your life to adjust. Good. Because I'm going to need it. She fell asleep first, her breathing evening out while Jimmy stayed awake a little longer, watching her in the dim light from the window. They spent the next month planning. Not a big wedding, they both agreed. Something small and meaningful, just the people who mattered most. They found the perfect ring in a vintage shop in Pike Place Market. Art Deco, emerald cut diamond, exactly Carolyn's style. Jimmy proposed again, properly this time, on December 20th in the bookstore after hours. You already asked me, Carolyn said, laughing. I wanted to do it right this time. The first time was right. Humor me. So she said yes again, and he slipped the ring on her finger, and they sat on the floor of Smith and Stories surrounded by books and plans and possibilities. They set the wedding for March, a small ceremony at a restaurant overlooking the Sound. Just 40 people, close friends and family, nothing fancy or complicated. Carolyn wore a simple cream dress. Jimmy wore a suit he'd owned for years. Malcolm walked her down the makeshift aisle while Patricia cried happy tears in the front row. The vows were short and honest. Promises to show up, to be present, to choose each other every day. To argue about books and politics and whose turn it was to do the dishes. To build something real and lasting and true. When Jimmy kissed his wife for the first time, he heard David whistle and someone else cheer, but mostly he just felt Carolyn smile against his lips. The reception was loud and joyful. Dancing and toasts and too much wine. Emma gave a speech about how Jimmy had been unbearable before Carolyn and merely difficult after. Malcolm told stories about Carolyn as a stubborn child that explained so much about her as a stubborn adult. Near the end of the night, Jimmy found Carolyn on the balcony, looking out at the water. Hey, wife. She turned and smiled. Hey, husband. That's going to take some getting used to. We have time. We do. She took his hand. Thank you. For what? For walking into my store. For fixing my website. For seeing me and loving me and building this life with me. Thank you for calling my book choice garbage. It was garbage. I know. But it got your attention. It did. She kissed him. Come on. We should get back to our wedding. Our wedding. I like the sound of that. They went back inside together, hand in hand, ready for whatever came next. 6 months later, Carolyn opened a second location of Smith and Stories in the University District. A year after that, she published an essay about independent bookstores that went viral and brought customers from across the country. Jimmy started a new company focused on sustainable technology, building something from scratch again because Carolyn had been right. He had decades left to create whatever he wanted. They fought sometimes, about money and time and whose turn it was to take out the trash. But they always came back to the balcony, to their spot, where they'd figured out how to be honest with each other. 5 years after that argument in a bookstore about economic theory, Jimmy found Carolyn reading on their terrible couch, surrounded by books, exactly where she belonged. Still think that book was garbage? He asked. Absolutely. Why? Just checking. Making sure you haven't gone soft on me. Never. Someone has to keep you honest. Lucky me. Lucky us. And really, that was the truth of it. 2 people who'd found each other by accident and chosen each other on purpose, every single day after. Building a life that was messy and complicated and absolutely perfect. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more emotional and heart-touching stories that speak to the soul, and share your thoughts in the comments to tell us which story you want to hear next.